to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. Before we get to the show, I wanted to let you know that the email list for Power Talk Friday Tour High Point October 15th, 2021 is open. That means if you go to powertalkfriday.com and put your name on that list, we will email you first to let you know that registration is open. As you know, the seats are dramatically limited for this event, okay? So my experts are nearly locked down. Probably by next week, I will be able to open registration once I have those confirmed. But for now, of course, I'm going to be there all day. The Vin Man will be there all day. And Eileen Hahn will be with us all day. I will be announcing the next two experts, our last two experts next week. So if you want to be with us, keep in mind, seats are limited, and keep in mind that we start at 8 a.m. on Friday, October 15, 2021. So that means that you'll need to make your planes and trains and all of the accommodations to get in on Thursday. All right? PowerTalkFriday.com. Now, today, joining us is Patricia Lohan, a Feng Shui expert, healer, and passionate entrepreneur. Patricia helps women make their home magnetic to money, luck, and blessings by making Feng Shui simple and easy to understand and to implement. She has helped thousands of people across the globe embrace Feng Shui and create lasting changes in their homes, their lives, and their businesses. She has seen firsthand the power of the mind and surroundings to create inner healing. Listen today as Patricia explains how we can Feng Shui our space to realize a life of abundance, of opportunity, of strength, and prosperity. I hope that you enjoy this episode. Hi, Patricia. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Patricia, what's interesting is of course, you're a Feng Shui expert. And there's a couple things that I love. I love that you found the podcast. And I asked you, how did you come to find the podcast? So would you share with everybody the answer that you gave me?
Well, first of all, I'm an entrepreneur as well, and interior designers and myself as a Feng Shui expert, we're doing the same thing. Well, not exactly, but we're all helping people create powerful, amazing environments for them. So we're all in the same, world. And I love learning more about, your business and how I can support it and grow.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, of course, we have designers who are also Feng Shui practitioners. I'm thinking of my friend Marina, who's here in New Jersey. But, a lot of times they are corollary, right? Like you have a practitioner who specializes just in that and not necessarily full design. But the thing is that I find interesting is, number one, your email to me explained how we're not really going to talk about today about how to teach designers to do Feng Shui for their clients. Your mission is today, at least, and I'm sure in other areas in your business, in your life, is to teach us business people who happen to be designers how to apply Feng Shui to the spaces that we work out of to create better environments and better energies and all the things, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it starts at home, it starts with our own place. I think that's the most important thing.
And what I love is that this reminds me, your podcast, you have your own podcast, and it's called Live Your Dreams Awake. What a powerful statement. What a very brilliant line for you. I mean, kudos on that title. But what it reminds me of is it reminds me of my friend Sandra Funk, who is well known to all of our colleagues listening to us today. And some may know this about Sandra, some may not. It's certainly something that she speaks about often, so it's not like me revealing my friend's secret sauce here, okay? But when Sandra had a business crisis, I want to say it'll be 5 years ago this fall, she literally had a come to Jesus business crisis. And her and I have talked about it on the podcast and panels before. We were in Atlanta together doing a speaking engagement, and in the airport coming back, she just was getting literally one email after another with clients pushing back on the invoice she sent, clients canceling their contracts. And it was going on for the 2 days that we were there. And it kind of came to a head at that as we were in line at the airport. And she just looked at me and I said to her, sweetie, what's going on? Like, you look completely, distraught. And that's when she revealed to me what had been going on the last couple of days. And I said to her, she goes, what am I going to do? And I just looked at her and I said, look, we're going to talk about it. We're going to pick it apart a little bit. But I got to say, on face value, if it was one client out of 10, okay, it's that client. But if it's 4 out of 6, we got to look in the mirror. There's something wrong with your process. You know what I mean? And she just looked at me like, whoa. Right? But Sandra is a woman with great conviction, great entrepreneurial intuition and skills. And she went back and she tells a story. She like literally put the brakes on her business. She was like, okay, no new clients until we close these out and we refigure out what the heck we're doing, right and wrong here. And she says, I hired a business coach. I hired a life coach. And I think she might have referred to it as a spiritual coach. But I remember going to her office. The point of all of this, Patricia, is I remember going to her office shortly after, and the desk was in a different spot. And there was like a candle here. And I can't remember the different things, but I was like, what is going on here? She goes, oh no, Lou, we're going full woo. She goes, we are bringing all assets of the universe to bear on rejiggering and turning this business around. And she really has consistently leaned into it. And I know that she knows that it's her hard work and grit, but she also has a deep belief that setting up her environment, both home and office, to the Feng Shui principles has had bearing on this success that she has gone on to completely massively create. So selfishly, I'm like, I need some of that. So tell us, like, where do we start with this, Patricia? If we're like, okay, so what do I do? Home, office, studio. How do I start to think about this so that it's opening up the energy flow? Is that what the principle underlying it is?
Yeah, well, for me, I like to describe feng shui as acupuncture for your home. So there's a lot of misconceptions about feng shui being like hanging weird trinkets and, strange things in your house. Like, it's not about that. And actually, I was asked recently a question of like, if you went to someone's house, like, would you know it's been feng shuied? Like, would it look that different? And it may not look any different to how it was. Like, that's just something that's really important. It may not look very different, but it will feel different. And the person's life, things going on in their life, will actually be just more fluid and happier, which is always the main thing. So I love your friend's example. And the first thing that you said that you noticed with her was that her desk was in a different position. And we're like, okay, this is where I always start with every single client, no matter what office we're looking at. If they're a high level, like financial executive, or someone working from home in their bedroom happens to be their office, the first thing we look at is like where they're sitting. And the main thing with this is that you want to be positioned in a power position, and a power position kind of feels like, oh, like, what do you mean by that? Well, you want to be in a position where you have, ideal scenario. And this is one of the big things for me when it comes to feng shui, is that it's not, we're not looking for, perfection. You may not be able to achieve what I'm giving you, but I'm going to give you like the best case scenario and then maybe some suggestions if you can't do what I suggest, because sometimes the space is a space and you can only do certain things with it, as you know yourself. So we have to work with what we've got, okay? You have to really just work what you've got. But the ideal scenario is that you sit in your office, you walk into your space, and you have a wall behind you. So you're not sitting with your back to the door. Now, the thing is, sitting with your back to the door kind of gives you this sense of like, I can't see what's coming. It can kind of activate this flight or fight response where you're like, oh, like it can really create a little bit of overwhelm. And honestly, just that one thing of shifting to have a wall behind you and you can see the door and see what's coming ahead of you can really make things open up. Now, case in point, I worked with a client. I got into their office, and it was like a husband and wife team. The husband is in one corner, he's the CFO, and he's just like so jolly and happy. And I look over at her, and she's the CEO, and she's like drawn, miserable, stressed out. And I'm like, it looked like they were working in two different businesses, like they were running looked like two different companies. But they both were sitting very differently in their office. When you walked in the door, she sat with her back to the door, the desk up to the wall. Everything came in and landed on her desk, on her shoulders, and she was in total overwhelm. I exactly said this to her. I said, are you feeling stressed out? You don't know what's coming, and everything lands on your desk. And she's like, how did you know? And I'm like, it's because of the way you're sitting. We need to shift this. Her husband, on the other hand, is over in the corner with his back to the wall, can see the door, happy out, feeling totally supported. He's not getting all the stuff because it's coming straight to her. So the first thing is it's creating this space between the front door or the door and where you're sitting. You know, in all huge corporate companies, the boss is not sitting right at the door, isn't the first person you see. It has to go through many different people to get to the CEO. So it's really about this kind of spaciousness is a big one. So the next thing when we talk about like the shifting of the position, if you can't and you're sitting here like, oh no, my desk is built in and I can't change it, get a small mirror and put a small mirror on your desk. So when you're sitting at your desk, you can see from the side of your eye in the mirror what's coming behind you. And that immediately will just go, oh, okay, that feels better. And you can seriously feel a little bit of a difference with that. So that gives us to the situation of like the chair. And I really just recommend having a good like on the boss chair. Now, over the past year, it has been pretty crazy, the situation that people have had, and they've ended up working in desk like on like I did a big training for like 600 people who were all working from home from a huge corporation, and one guy was literally working from the dishwasher. I was like, oh man, this is like I was like it's gone to extremes at the moment.
Well,
like,
you know why that is because his wife needed a space, his 3 kids who were homeschooling needed a space, and he was just like, look, Dad, you go there.
Exactly. Like I was like, my heart went out to him. I was like, man, like kids are any space at the kitchen table even. So I know that like there's such a kind of diverse situation for many people who are working from home right now. And for me, for any of you who are business owners, like you want to make your space a priority for you. Like you want to walk in and go, I am so happy to be here. I feel inspired here. And if a client is going to happen to walk in, so many of us work now virtually, like just like myself. But if a client was to walk in here today, would it reflect me and my business? Like, would it really reflect like what I'm creating, who I'm calling in, and the type of clients that I want to have? Especially as an interior designer, if it's like you obviously want it to feel styled and look the part, and that someone will come in and go, yeah, I love this. Like, I want an office like this for my home, is what you want to be creating. So the chair is really important because we want a chair that is like a strong back on it as well. So like that feels like I'm the boss. Like I'm the boss. I have a great chair. I've got the wall supporting me. I can see what's coming in the direction of me. And then the next big thing for me when it comes to the office setup is just looking at what's on the walls and what's on the shelves. So this is where, people may be expecting me to say, oh, put like some frog there or put some weird thing. I'm like, no golden frogs in my world. What I really want to think about is just like, what is in your space that's going to inspire you? So the artwork is huge. I remember doing a consult for a lady years ago in her office, and she had it set up. She had this beautiful like mahogany set like table and amazing chair. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm advise this woman on. It looks great. And I'm like, tell me about this piece of art on the walls. And the piece of art was this winter scene. And it was very much, winter is to do with introversion, darkness. There's no flourishing, there's no growth, there's no expansion. Like it was a pretty dismal kind of scene. And I'm like, summer harvest is more what you're going to be looking for. You want to think the artwork on your walls to represent more abundance, more flourishing. She was like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, well, tell me about this painting. She goes, it was my ex-husband's.
Oh my
Man,
goodness.
like something that didn't work out is in your office where you're trying to be productive, creative, generate cash. Like, seriously, not a good idea. And, we seriously can be laughing here, but honestly, the amount of like artwork that I see in people's office spaces that is just not appropriate for that idea of like this space needs to be an inspiring, flourishing space, and the art on the walls needs to represent that. So for me, I'm a huge fan of like art that is like very much around nature. So whether it's like beautiful trees or a field of poppies or a field of bluebells, you never see one bluebell on its own. So it's that sense of like what artwork inspires you to feel really creative, really expansive, and expresses where you're going, which is a really important thing I see in that people kind of forget to do when we're looking at setting up your office. And the next thing is like what's on the shelves. So this is an example from a client who was a Tony Robbins coach, and she was doing great, but she wanted to go out on her own as well. But she used to be a cordon bleu chef, and her office had all her cookery books in it. And I was like, where's all your personal development books? Yeah. Where's all, currently I'm working with an interior designer who's a client of mine, and we're feng shuiing her place. And we were going through all of her books, her wallpaper books and her, and she's like, oh, I was like, she doesn't have any of those in her office. And I'm like, what? We need to get the things that you use for work in your office related to your business. And it was the same with this lady. I was like, get rid of the cookery books, get rid of anything that's not supportive or aligned with your actual business and what you're doing, get it out. And when you do that, you're like making space for new clients, new opportunities.
Okay, lots in here. Okay, so lots in here.
Stop, take a breath.
No. It's lots of good things. So, the desk position thing. So it's interesting because we had Kathy Hargadin. I always say her name. It's a tough name. Kathy Hargadin on the show way back, episode 132. We're over 700 now, Patricia, right? And I remember her talking about the desk position too. And of course, what I noticed was that my desk at WindowWorks, at the time I was, still really full-time in WindowWorks and side hustling the podcast, was positioned in the exact right spot. But my desk in the podcast was not. I literally changed it that afternoon. I was like, we're going to turn that around, right? But it was funny. I don't remember having the suggestion for when, like you said, your desk is built in and you really can't turn it around. It may or may not have been in that show. But you're saying we don't necessarily need in front of us, because I just want to take a second, because there are a lot of people, like you said, that have a built-in desk and it's a, blah, blah, blah. So we don't need an entire mirror facing us, reflecting the entire room.
No.
We need just something that we can glance in and we can catch the door. The idea is that no one enters that door with us not knowing literally, in real time, because we can see them as they do it. That's the point.
Exactly. And it could be even a small compact mirror.
Right.
It doesn't need to be something huge. And that is really like an intentional part, really intentional part.
Right. Okay. So I like that because it's practical and we can do that. For those of us that are, can easily move our desk, for those of us that are working with our clients and they're designing their spaces, we can keep it in mind the other way to put the desk in a better position. Okay.
Exactly. And oftentimes with the desk, like if it is pushed up against a wall, like I actually remember being interviewed on a podcast and talking to the guy, and he was just like, I was like, you can feel like you're cornered in, like if you're in this small little corner, so the idea of just shifting it around and if this space in front of you can really change things. If you're like looking into a little corner all day, it's that sense of being boxed in. Where you turn it around, it just gives you more expansion.
Now, does it impact it if, for example, I'm thinking of my husband's desk. It's interesting because at the time of that first interview with Kathy, his desk was L-shaped facing a corner, and his back was literally 3 feet from the door. Okay. Whereas
Yeah.
my desk was on the opposite corner of the space, but my chair was in the diagonal of the corner and my desk was diagonal facing out. I mean, it was just bizarre that we built the office that way, and we both picked the desk that we liked, and that was how it went, right? So it wasn't by design. But he doesn't mind, number one. Number two, there's no debating that he's been successful all these years. And then when we built our new office space, I remember thinking I'd like to figure his desk out to be at a wall and all this stuff, but it literally could not happen. And I thought, well, it hasn't gotten in his way in 40 years of business. It's probably not going to start now. So, but what I'm asking you is, so when you walk into his office now, and I'm going through this exercise in case you can visualize for yourself how your desk in your office is, and we get to the mitigating factors if there are any, right? So when you walk into his office now, right at the right when you walk in, there's the short L and then the long L, and his desk sits at the far end of the long L. So he's about 4 feet with his, if he's sitting square at his desk, the door is diagonal to his right shoulder. But I wonder, does it make any difference that at his left arm, literally within 2 feet, is a full glass. It's like 7 feet wide by like 8 feet tall. And so the office feels very open, even though it's small. And here's the other thing that is interesting. In his old office, he has these photographs hanging on the wall. And I've always noticed, until I didn't think of it till you said the mirror, if you look up, you can see the reflection of the door in the photographs. So I don't know that that happens now because it's at an angle. But does any of this mitigate this, or is it just bad feng shui and he just gets over it?
You know what? And then the thing is, there's so many different layers to feng shui, and how I perceive feng shui is that it's like an iceberg, and at the tip of the iceberg is like the subtle things in terms of like setting up your desk position, like making sure that your space is clear. There's like subtle little nuances around a house that we will do. And then for me, my work is like underneath the water. It's the invisible energy. So obviously if he's been doing really well, I'm like, well, good feng shui up there, in terms of supporting career and business. And if he hasn't had any huge things, like in terms of like he could still put the little mirror in and it won't do any harm.
Right. It's not a negative. Okay. And then when you talk about the desk chair, so here's the interesting thing. So my question is, yes, the ideal, sort of along the same lines, is that it's a big I'm a boss chair. But like, for instance, my space at LuAnn Inc., again, I remembered this concept, and it's not on an angle to the door, but my desk is situated where I'm anchored with the wall. I'm looking across the room at the door, feels very spacious. But, I don't have I'm a boss chair. I have a regular chair because it was green. It's hard to find green chairs. And it works for me. It's a roller chair. So in that regard, when we think about, like you just said, if your desk is facing the wall and it's built in, is it the simple that having certain things within the feng shui principles are positive, but not having them isn't negative? Or is there like, LuAnn, just go buy a new chair because you've got the whole thing, don't miss that point? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. So for example, if you're sitting with your back to the door, with the back to a wall, and you can see the door, for me, my priority of having a big I'm the boss chair is not going to be I'm not going to be as strict with the client. If they're in the situation where they're sitting with their back to the door, I'm like, you need a proper chair because you need more support behind you.
Okay.
You're just like in floating, so there's a dance, and this is where we work with our clients, and we're like, well, what do you have and what can we work with? And right now your chair is not like an emergency,
right?
But
Understood.
if you were like, oh, you happen to find this beautiful green one that suits, that fits in, and has a tall high back on it, amazing.
Okay. And interestingly, just to close the loop, he always has had that I'm a boss chair. So
there you go.
Whereas in the other office that I was diagonal with my back to the wall, I sat on a ball chair. like
Yes.
literally no support. The
Hmm.
whole point was to engage my abs all day. Like, so for 15
Yes.
years, I sat on a ball chair.
But it
Okay.
works. You have strong abs.
Right. So it's so funny how all the different things go. Okay. So now moving beyond the desk and the chair, you went to the artwork. And I have a question about the artwork. So this woman who had the winter scene, it turns out that it was not only a winter scene, but it was also from the ex-husband. But
Hmm.
does it spin it on its head if you say to me, why do you have a winter scene? And you're like, it's my favorite season. I grew up, in the tundra. It has all the best memories. In other words, is it personal or is it objectively no? Warm nature is better. Like, am I
Oh,
crazy
it's
down this lane or?
totally. Oh, you're totally spot on. Like it is so personal. Like
Okay.
I remember going into a client's house and like saying, "That is a beautiful picture of your family." And you know what she said? She's like, "Oh, we had a terrible fight before that picture was taken." And I was like, "You need to get rid of it. Get it off the walls." Like every single one of their family members would walk in and see that picture.
And
Every
they all
person
are reminded
over
of
and
that
over, and they're
day.
reminded of that day and that fight. And it can be the most beautiful picture. Or it's same with another client. You're on the way into her bedroom. There was this picture on the wall of like one solitary woman and walking into the clouds. Like it was quite mystical looking.
Mm.
And I thought, well, tell me about this picture. And she said, well, that picture was taken by my husband. We just had a big fight and I stormed off. And I
Whoa.
was like, and this was outside their bedroom door. So every night going to bed, on their way to bed, both of them would pass that picture for storming off. And I'm like, we just get rid of it. Like, first of all, the
Yeah.
location was terrible. And the thing is, it looked artistic and creative, but like every picture, just like you had said about like, if that person, that winter scene, like, I grew up in the tundra and I loved it. That's exactly why I always ask, like, well, tell me more about
Tell
this
me about
picture.
it. Yes, tell me
Tell
about
me
it.
about it.
Okay, so
And the
we have
thing
to
is,
look
for
around our
residents,
own space and say, what does this picture, what does this art, what does this graphic mean to me? And if the answer
exactly.
comes back to some root thing, just throw it away. Who cares?
Exactly, exactly. And there's a whole, for me, I'm a bigger fan of having like a blank wall with space for something amazing to come to than a picture that's just there because it like, oh, it kind of fits in. I love the idea of making your home become a vision board for where you're going.
Mm.
And a vision board sounds like kind of a bit like tack, but I worked with a client in LA a couple of years ago, and it was the most amazing experience. So she redecorated her entire apartment in this beautiful Art Deco theme, and it was stunning. And I talked to her about this art, and I'm like, you can pick pieces that represent what it is that you want to do or create. And on the wall, I happened to be doing an in-person visit. I was in LA, so I went to do a session with her for her final one. And I walked in, and there's this two big photos of those old propeller planes,
Mm.
and they would be totally in keeping with the era of her decor. So it just looked like she found these two pictures that were completely in keeping with the decor. Oh man, I said, like, I love this, and this is her, happened to be her new beginnings area. And she was like, yeah. She goes, I want to propel forward. So every
Mm.
time she walked in, she wasn't just seeing these planes that happened to be in keeping with the decor. It was, I'm propelling forward in my life.
Wow, that's powerful. I love that.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that gives us some things to think about. I like that. And I'm going to ask a question that you're probably going to be like, "You're an idiot, LuAnn." But
No.
okay, so say I have like say like let's just use that woman. That's probably not the type of picture you give away, but whatever. Like, okay, let's take the snow woman's picture, right?
Yeah.
So that has negative juju on it because it comes from a relationship that's failed, and the winter scene is nothing personal and uplifting to that particular person. But
Hmm.
here's the thing. This is the crazy question. If my friend is the friend who grew up in the tundra and she never knew my ex-husband and she has no bad juju, the picture doesn't carry the juju, or does it?
No,
Okay.
I don't think it does. I don't think it does, to be
I
honest.
didn't
And
think
I
so
think that
either, but
also when there's no association to it. Now, saying that, years ago, I was doing a space clearing of my sister's house. And my sister is like not into my world really, but I did say to her, she'd moved in, built this amazing new home, and I said we'll do a space clearing. So I was using sage and just clearing the energy, and we went around and it was fine. And then she had this huge old cabinet, this giant cabinet that had been down in the shed, that she had got in an antique store. And it just happened to be in her living room. She wasn't sure where it was going to go. And we started doing the sage, and I'm not joking you, the sage, this started smoking like crazy, like absolutely crazy. And we were like, I was like, oh, this has a bit of strong energy.
Wow.
And afterwards, she just looked at me and she's just like, I'm not keeping it. I'm not keeping it. And I was just like, I didn't say anything. But like we'd gone around the house and it was like so simple. And then all of a sudden, literally, it was like crazy smoke. And we were like, she's like, she's like, I don't even believe in your stuff, Patricia, but like, I'm not keeping this because I can see something is with it.
That's funny. Oh my goodness, that's funny. I have to tell you a story. I had a live conference this past February. And Blanche Garcia was one of the speakers at the conference, and she is a well-respected interior designer in our industry, and just she's a fierce boss lady. That's who she is all day long. I love her from the day I met her, and what was so funny is in her conversation, what comes up is about very often a designer, needs to have a body of work in their portfolio. And in the beginning, you're doing a lot of work and some of it is photographable and some of it is not photographable, right? So having quality photographs is very precious. And it would be like this woman being like, well, it's the only painting I have, so I had to have it even though it's an ex-husband's painting. It's that sort of like, I have to have portfolio work. And, of course, we reinforce that to interior designers all the time. You have to have portfolio work, right? But Blanche was talking about, we were having a conversation about how when a project goes off the rails and a client, just disrespects your boundaries and, all of the things and wants to push you out of scope. And Blanche was having conversation about, staying in your lane and defending yourself and your business against somebody who wants to hijack it, for the most part, is what she was talking about. And somebody said something about, but like if you end the project, you might feel good about it, but like, what about the photographs that you would have gotten from that project? And you would have loved her answer. She was like, I don't want that bad juju in my portfolio. She goes, there's no way. And she said, I've even had photographs that I've taken from a project, and then after the fact, the relationship is soured. She goes, and I pull them out. She goes, I'm not looking at my portfolio every day on the website or in a presentation and being reminded of that bad juju.
Exactly. Oh my God, it's so true. It's so true. And actually this kind of segues into like any things in your house. Like it's not just the art, but like stuff in your house that has any kind of bad juju or a moment, like a memory that's like, oh, that person or that thing. I just was doing some work at my mom's, like with my mom one day, and as I said, they're not into this, but I still have her house feng shuied, and
you're a good daughter.
I'm a good daughter. So she had this beautiful little side table that she wanted to show me, and she was so excited, like literally ecstatic that she got this little perfect table for the perfect place. And I was like, yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, it's great. And then we happened to look over at this little cabinet that she had a few like ornaments on. And I picked up one and I was like, oh, I said, what about this? This is a chip on it. And she was like, chipped things obviously have depleted energy. Like I'm not a big fan of having anything chipped or broken or not working in your house. So I said, like, I'm not sure about this one, and she goes, that was from your sister, her first school tour. Like, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to go near that one. Fine, it can stay there. And then I said, like, well, I looked at this other like little ornament with this little woman with these jugs in it. And I said to her, like, well, how do you feel about this? Like, she was like, oh, it's okay. And I said, oh, you don't sound as excited about that new side table about it. And she's like, you're right. I'm getting rid of it. And she really twigged the idea of like this little woman, this ornament that she'd had for all these years. She was just like, you know what? I don't even know why I have it. I'm just getting rid of it. And what happened was like literally miraculous afterwards. Like I went off, I don't know what I was doing. I came back. She had like a bag of stuff. She's like, those candlesticks, that woman drives me crazy. I don't even like her anymore. No. And she just had this huge bag of stuff for charity by literally that whole idea of, that piece that you just bought that you love. Do you love everything else as much as that? And it was fascinating to watch.
Yes. And so the benefit in that is it just clearing, like, in other words, if you are either neutral about a piece or negative, then it's just cluttering space and you should get rid of it. Is that the sort of a thing that you just look around and you're like, what's it there for? It doesn't serve any mental, emotional, or decorative purpose?
Yeah, and I think that one thing for me, especially with things like that, like they end up just staying there and creating kind of a stagnant energy around them.
Mm-hmm.
They can often just kind of create this stagnancy. And as I said, like Feng Shui is acupuncture for your home. One of our main things is about making sure things are flowing and moving. And I just always think of this story where I worked with a client who, when she had moved into her husband's like home house when they got married, and I'm like walking around, and this is a very old bookcase with some books that looked very old, and I said to her, like, tell me about this bookcase. Has like, she goes, well, that was there when I moved in 32 years ago. And I was like, okay. And the books, and she said they've been there too. And I was like, has anyone ever read them? Like, are you ever going to read them? Like, what, And she was like, oh. And for me, it was just like this real realization that often things just get left and they create stagnant energy. So you may have heard like feng shui, decluttering. But for me, clutter, like the clutter that most people think is just like life, it's like the clothes that are left on the side chair in your bedroom from like yesterday, or like the dishes on the counter from today. Like, that's called life to me.
Right.
What for me is more clutter or can be blocking the energy and the flow in people's homes is those kind of shelves that are just like untouched, that if just nothing is happening, or the cupboard that you kind of get scared and nervous to open up and you're like, oh, I don't want to go in there. Because that's literally stagnant. There's just nothing happening, and we want movement. So even the idea of moving through and looking at things and be like, oh, I'll move that and just change that, it can really just freshen up the space.
It's funny. It's true. My mother was one of those people that was like a serial like moving the furniture around the room. Like, you would come home. I don't have any recall if it was every 6 months, once a year, every 2 weeks. I have no idea. But it was like we grew up with, oh, the sofa's over there today. Like,
yeah.
And we've never had a big house. We never had a lot of things, but she just always moved it around. You know what I mean? And it's so funny because I never thought about it, but maybe subconsciously she was just always moving the energy and creating new experiences, new things, new whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things, like for me in my practice, people come to me when they're feeling stuck in their lives. Like they're hitting some sort of plateau. Like they may already have the most beautiful interior designed home, but things are just not moving. So for example, they're having issues financially or in their relationship or in their career. They're doing all the work. So, they have the business coach, they're doing all of the promotion, the marketing, they've all of the wisdom and knowledge and experience to soar, but they're not. And then they come across me and I'm like, okay, there's something obviously blocking the flow and allowing you to expand. Like, or you're kind of in this constant struggle with something. For example, like Monica comes to mind. Monica came to me and she's like doing great in her marketing business, was like doing amazingly. But she said, she's like, Patricia, like, there's something wrong with the financials with my home because I just signed a $28,000 client, and like literally a week later, the plumbing in her entire house exploded. And how much was it going to cost to fix it? $28,000.
Wow.
She's like, every time money came in, it just disappears. And there's something off. And that's kind of like, that's where I come in. Like for me, it's, people will ask me like, oh, so you tell people like where to put your furniture and like do design stuff. And I'm like, no. Like, that's what an interior designer does. Like, you don't ask the acupuncturist for fashion advice.
Right,
but
right.
I work with the energy of making sure that it is supportive for the people in every aspect of their lives.
So, question for you. Where did you go when the woman, first of all, I have to say, if it happened once or twice, I would instinctively be the glass is half full reaction to that situation. Isn't that crazy? Like that silly, crazy thing just broke and it's 28K and I just signed 28K. So I'm not going into savings. I'm not going into monthly budget. Like, whoa, thanks universe, right? But I can understand the frustration if it happens over and over. It's almost like, wait a second, I am, constantly building up something to have it depleted. So where did you go with like, what is the thing that you do in that situation when you figure, how do you uncover what it is in her life or space that is creating that cycle of give and take like that? Give and take away,
sure.
I should say.
Yeah. So in Feng Shui, the school that I practice, which is classical flying stars Feng Shui, there are different house types. So my first thing would be to analyze like what her house type was. So that comes actually from, first of all, analyzing her floor plans, looking on Google Earth, Google Maps to see what's going on externally from her house, taking some compass readings. We do that all virtually. And then doing an analysis based on where her house is located and the year that it is built. So it's almost like not to get like too woo, but it's like an astrological reading for the house. Like it's basically reading like what is the energy going on since this house was built. And typically, houses will have very specific dynamics. So they can be houses that are there's some houses that are born built that are good for people and good for money, and that's kind of an overarching energy. Now Monica's house was bad for money. And it was actually bad for people as well. So there was like lots of health issues and stuff going on. So the minute I did the analysis of her house, I was like, well, her house is bad for people, bad for money. That makes sense. And then every house is unique. So there's a different process for everyone in terms of like what are the balancing elements, but everything is fixable. I think that's one of the most important things. So I did the analysis and then I was like, well, this explains why this is happening. And how can we change this around? Now, the nice thing of all of this, when we talk about like, oh my God, it's bad for people, bad for money. I'm like, that's okay. It's all fixable and we can work with what we've got. And then we cure using 5-element theory. So we're working with adding in specific elements to specific areas that balance it and literally bring it into like things start to flow again. So she's not in this all money in, money out experience. Like she's like, money in, I can save it, I can do what I want with it, as opposed to paying for plumbing or whatever. And like, on the flip side of Monica's experience, she ended up writing a book, getting and buying another company, getting like loads of new clients. Like it was just really an incredible situation. And her husband ended up getting all of these like stock options, like completely unexpectedly, so there was lots of great things in the turnaround. And she's like, now my house is good for money. Wow. So that's how it works. And it's not necessarily, it's not about like a restructure and a remodel, which a lot of people will be afraid of with Feng Shui, is that like, oh my God, you're going to tell me that like my office is in the wrong place, or my stairs are wrong, or my doors are incorrect. And, there's a lot of information out there about Feng Shui. And for me, I'm like, we'll work with the house that you've got. If I work with clients with their floor plans, like designing, helping them like structure, like where not to have your bedroom. If we're with a pen and pencil, pencil and paper, that's easy to do. But if it's a structural build, we're like, okay, well, that's where the stairs is, and that's okay. There's 100 other things that we can do to improve your energy of your home. We're not going to focus on the stuff that's not ideal, but it's still workable. And there's always something we can do. Just like, we were talking about sitting with the chair, the back to the door. Let's put a pop-up mirror there to mitigate that and to make it easier.
So I'm going to ask you a question that you're probably not going to love.
Okay.
I hear it all. I do. And I'm woo-woo. I'm raised woo-woo. I get it all. But there's a part of me that my woo-woo is rooted in knowing that our mind is the most powerful thing that we have at our disposal. And that when we truly, truly manifest something, if we, I'm talking really intentional, devoted mental energy to when you want to manifest something. And I've done it several times in my life. And it's so funny because often, I think just in the last couple of weeks, might have been my son-in-law or somebody, and he's like, well, why don't you just manifest whatever we were talking about? And I just looked at him and I said, please don't underestimate the amount of mental energy that really goes into manifesting something specific. Like, it's not just like wish for that. It's like, I've done it, I've created it, I know it, it's something you live and breathe till you get it done. So my question is, so what I'm saying, I set that up that way by saying, I believe that we can create things. But I wonder, and I'm willing to believe the Feng Shui. I totally am. I'm not really questioning you, but I have to play devil's advocate. Is in the case of Monica, when you then explain to her that we are now going to do this in the financial area of your home to mitigate this, and we're going to do this, how do you know it's really because of the things that you've done and not necessarily because now the person fully believes it and they walk around going, my house is now, good for money and good for health, because that's a very powerful affirmation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I am a huge fan of like manifesting. Like my second name is like manifesting, like little, like I just like a manifesting queen. But what I would say to you is there is like, since Feng Shui has come into my life and into my client's life, I think that there's a whole aspect of like what we can treat with like everything is energy. So our bodies, our mind, our focused intention, 100%. And I love the aspect of then getting our home in alignment with it. So when our home is supporting us energetically, it then brings us more flow into our lives. So for example, I did all of I do all the manifesting, I make my vision boards. I love all of that stuff. And I encourage my clients to do it as well. I totally encourage them to do it as well, because I believe that we can throw everything at it, But when when I started doing Feng Shui in my journey, I Feng Shuied myself and my husband's our house. And the first thing our master said to us when we both did it together, she turned and she was like, "So did you have financial difficulties last year?" And we were like, "What?" Ken had worked in his job for 6 months as a contractor and had not been paid. Like he literally nearly went bankrupt. And I was like, how did she know this? Like, how did she know? It was like we were both really spooked out. And she said, oh yeah, well, your house went through this phase that was very difficult for finances. It probably all got sorted by March. And honestly, the 1st of March, Ken got all the money.
Wow.
So for me, even I was a little bit like, when I started Feng Shui, I started doing it because I was like, I'm passionate about this. I'm interested in it. I believe that I'm going to it's going to make a difference for me in my life. And when that happened, I was like, wow, okay. And then we went back to our house and we Feng Shuied and did all of the things that I tell my own clients to do. I did exactly what we were told, what we do now. And within a few months, I had like written my intention of like the amount of money I wanted to have. And from the most obscure place, I invested $100,000. And this on the exact date that it was asked for.
Wow.
So like, it was pretty intense. And the thing is, I was at the time, not doing this for my living, for my business, but everyone was like, what has just happened in your life? Patricia, you used to cycle around on a bicycle because you couldn't afford a car. Right. And now you're in this house in the mountains with a new car and all these new things happening. What is going on? And I was like, well, it's the Feng Shui. And what I see is that, especially for someone who's doing the mindset work, all of the vision boarding, all of that, is that when you tap into this resource, which is our home, and kind of turn it on, it literally amplifies all the work that we're already doing. Like, and that's my experience, but also with like hundreds of my clients. Like they literally are like, what has just happened? Like one guy, he's a gorgeous client. He's like, Patricia, like I'm getting a refund for tax I paid like a few years ago, overpaid a few years ago. Like, what is this stuff? And I'm like, I don't really know, but it works.
Right.
So that's my experience of it. And this is what what I see. So 100% mindset is huge. And, if some client is having a tough time or something's going on, and I'm like, well, we know it's not your house. So now you have to get sorted on the internal, like get your mind in cue with that, and then it'll line up.
Right.
So it's it's amazing, and sometimes it's hard to logically make sense.
Well, and I think, that's why I started with that I believe in visualization and stuff. So because I'm not a non-believer, I'm not a person that you're starting at ground zero and you've got to get me all the way there. But there is that layer of logic. And I have to say, you let me know if you agree, as you were talking about it, I was sort of thinking in my mind, it's almost like when you said, getting your house in order, getting your house in a position where it's able to support you, right? So you have the mind component that if the whole house is right, but you're still walking around with negative talk in your head. I'm not successful. I never get any money. I never get any clients. All my clients are annoying. All my clients push me past my scope. Like it doesn't matter, right? Like you're overriding, like your mind to me is the most important thing, right? But it reminded me of like, if I were on a journey for physical health, it's like, okay, so my body is like my house, and maybe the food and the things I do to it is like my mind. So if I'm feeding my physical body really good food, but I'm not exercising it, I'm not taking care of it in that way, it's going to have an effect, but it's not going to have the most desirable effect. But if I take care of my body, in the analogy, that's my house, and I exercise my body and I feed it good nutrition, and that's my mind, now I've just given myself the double whammy edge to really achieve my health goals.
Yeah, and actually one of the things that just came up as you were talking was like, it's also like the attachment to the results, which is a big thing for me with my clients. Like exactly, like looking after your body, doing the health and the food and watching all of that is exactly the same with what we're doing with the house. But what is so fascinating is that the people who are not attached. So like I have like 90% women who join me in my program to 99%. But actually it's the husbands that get phenomenal results. Like the women get amazing results, and the husbands who are like, oh yeah, do whatever you want, whatever, are getting the pay rises, the new company cars, all of this stuff that they're like,
What is that about?
Yeah.
Like it's just, another place where like the guys get, like, I don't get it. That's weird. Do you
I
think
know.
do you
And
think
it's
that
just,
they're not on the journey for the results the way the woman is, so they're not maybe mentally doing the I'm not sure this will work thing. They're just like there's like no negative energy towards, or maybe the women who are engaged with you have that little bit of I wonder if it'll work while they're saying this will work. I wonder if it'll work, like, because I know the mind is so powerful like that. Like
yeah.
you have to tell it, like it has to truly believe. You have to truly believe it, or it can't happen.
And that's like, I suppose for me is that when people join my program, we've like hundreds of testimonials and people who've had amazing results. They're like, and like, I also say to them, like, I want you to be my next case study. I want you to be the next person sharing your success stories. And they have to overcome this resistance and step into their power and say to their husbands, I'm doing this thing, or to their partners, and say, I'm doing this thing. And it's absolutely like fascinating. Like to watch.
Yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
fascinating. And the idea, like, they also like, it's like stepping up out of their comfort zone. Like a lot of the women would be stuck in some shape or form, and it's like something needs to change. So it's like when they step into changing just their physical environment, which they have a home, it's a resource that they've never like actually really spent some time and energy on. Well, obviously some TLC with designing and putting everything in place, but like, how can I optimize this, and
Yeah.
use what they already have?
I love it. So interesting. I mean, there's so many different avenues to look at. Like, I love the little part of the conversation where, you have that, like that woman, for her propelling into her future is to find something that represents the future for you and what you desire to have happen, right? And it's funny because I just ask you a question on that is there is a thought in manifesting and in visualizing that you have to visualize that it's already yours. Like you can't say, I am going to get this, because the future never comes. Every day it's the present. And so for us, when I grew up, it was like, I'm so happy and grateful that I am this. I'm so happy and grateful that I have this, whether we had it already or not, or we were it already or not. And so, because there is no such thing. Like, my husband plays the lottery every single day. I have known him for 40 years. He plays the lottery every day. Okay. It's bizarre. Okay. Literally bizarre to me. But it's his thing and he likes it and blah, blah, blah. And the funny thing is I stopped arguing with him. I stopped arguing with him about 25 years ago, because he would always say, you never know, tomorrow might be the day I win. And I would be like, would you stop saying tomorrow might be the day you win? Start saying, I'm so glad I won the lottery. And he's like, that's ridiculous. And I'm like, but you're always saying is, I can't wait until I win the lottery. Or when I win the lottery, I'm going to give all of our kids this, and I'm going to give your mom that, and I'm going to give my brother this. And I'm like, but it's always in the future. We've had full blown arguments and finally I'm just like, okay, just play the lottery every day, and always be planning what you will do in the future when you will win it. Like, it's crazy.
Like, I want it. I always have conversations with Ken about isn't it amazing that we're here in our new house in Greece and we just love it, and and he's just like, you're bats.
Exactly. It's like it has to be in the present, So
yes, exactly. Exactly.
I don't know, crazy. So, but that question was, her thing, see, I could take this stuff so literal because I know the universe is literal. So her thing is, I guess the language is, I am propelling into the future. She's not doing, I'm going to propel into the future. And I am is the present. I'm every day getting up and I'm propelling. Okay, I can that can work that around. I just know that I literally just know that the universe is literal. It's totally literal.
Literal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, say it, and you say it often enough, and you believe it, and you think it will happen. So you have to be careful what you wish for.
Don't say it much, but we literally were like, we just need a house. Our house is called Beaufort House in Ireland, and we're like, we just need a Beaufort house in a beautiful place in the countryside, blah, blah, blah. And as we were driving through Italy earlier this year, we've literally just about to sign contracts on a house in Italy that is the exact same, nearly the same size, but it actually, if you drive up to it, has the same number of windows and the same shape as our house in Ireland.
You manifested it.
It's literally Beaufort House in Italy. We can't call it that, but it was like Casamarco. Oh, man.
It's the truth, right? It's so true.
Good.
So
true.
Good. Well, this is awesome. So here's all the things. Of course, we have your podcast, okay? Mm-hmm. And that is I'm listening. That was such a great line. Where is it? Live your dreams awake. I love it. Okay. And then you wrote a book, Happy Home, right?
Yep.
Do we get that on Amazon?
That's on Amazon, The Happy Home, a guide to creating a happy, healthy, wealthy life.
Love it. And then tell us how they get to your website, if anybody is interested in taking this a step further with you or learning. And I think you have some free downloads on the website and little checklists. Yeah. Give us all that.
Yeah, so I'm at patricialohan.com, and there is a couple of different guides. There's one Feng Shui checklist that goes through every room with just some guides, tips. And then I also have Feng Shui Your Office guide as well.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So fun. So fun. It really does, cross that little bit of, look, when you said the clearing your space, I remember Sandra doing that too. She goes, I had the space cleared, I had the house cleared, I had the office cleared. We got all the bad, mojo out of here and all the things. And when you really, when you come from it, my perspective, knowing that I can mentally, verbally visualize, manifest something, it only makes sense that. And if you are supported by an environment that also is creating good energy and good flow and all those things, it's a logical next step. And so I might have to take a look around my house.
There you go. Well,
literally going to walk through and go, don't need that. Well, I have so little to begin with in here because when I did this next phase of our life, we moved in here, I guess, 9 years ago. I just was like, I'm not filling this up with stuff that I'm never going to use. I'm not putting a little vignette there for a reading nook because I'm never going to go in the reading nook and read. It's like, I'm not doing this crap. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But you do just accumulate stuff. And it's sort of like you put it in the corner. You're like, what am I doing with that there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So love it. Love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Patricia.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
I love how excited Patricia is about her practice of Feng Shui and about showing her clients the abundance and the opportunity that is already present in their lives, right? She lights up when she talks about the turning points her clients make and the blessings that are showered upon them. So, how are her clients landing these big wins, right? By pushing a chair and a desk from one side of the room to the other, having a different kind of a chair? Well, yes, it's clear. She explained that. These are physical changes, but it is also the mental and emotional changes that are the key factors here. Patricia and Feng Shui are changing the lives of her clients. That much is true. And it certainly makes you think, doesn't it? As she was talking, I was mentally walking through my house, taking inventory of what's on the walls and my shelves. And then after our conversation, I actually did an intentional walkthrough of my house and paid attention to how the objects affect my consciousness. What do I think when I look at that painting or when I see those things on that shelf? I have to say, it was worth it to take a careful look around and to notice how our physical environment affects our mental state. And I was happily glad to notice that I only have a few tweaks to make, right? But make no mistake, I'm making them. I already put things up on the Facebook Marketplace. I'm like, that's got to go, right? Because this doesn't seem so woo-woo to me, that our minds can be cleansed or inspired by our environment, or that we can create opportunity in our lives just by switching out art. Many of you have seen my virtual speaking presentations over the last year and a half, and you've seen that picture of my tiger behind my desk. I remember one time after the Maidoma 19 hours, somebody said, oh, she has that there to block some, tchotchkes or things on the desk that she doesn't want in the presentation. And it's like, no. See, I love this tiger. I love her. Okay. Talk about art creating a feeling in you that serves your life, your goals, your purpose. Every time I see her, I walk up to my desk and I'm about to sit down. I look at her and I mentally say, we got this, lady. We are capable. We are strong. We are fierce. We are ready. For real, right? That's a ton of amazing positive energy every day, wouldn't you say, that I get by looking at the eyes of that tiger, right? Now, how did I come to have this tiger? I mentioned Kathy Hartigan's episode number 132. When I spoke with her, you should go back and listen to that too, right? So when I spoke to her, she talked about having a personal symbol of strength behind you at your desk. She said it could be anything, a mountain, an ocean. She said whatever speaks to you. And if you heard that show, you might remember that I said to her, oh, I have my vision board behind me. And I said, that makes me feel good. Is that what you mean? And she literally said, no. Your vision board should be in front of you. Your vision board is where you are going. It is what you are creating. Behind you should be this grounding force of strength. Well, as I told you in today's episode, I literally rearranged my office right after that conversation with Kathy. I moved my desk, I moved my vision board, and I went on the hunt for my symbol of power. And I looked at mountains, I looked at ocean pictures and things, and it just didn't speak to me. And I don't remember now if it was Kathy who triggered this idea in me or if I came up with it a different way. I didn't go back and listen to the episode myself, okay? But I ended up looking up what my birth year was on the Chinese calendar. And when I looked it up, it said, I am the tiger. I'm the year of the tiger. And I literally had this feeling of, whoa. You see, I've always sort of felt this thing about tigers. I've always thought they're calm but fierce. And they're not showy like lions with the mane and all the things. But all the while, they're beautiful and intense and driven. So when I saw that my birth year was the year of the tiger, out to the internet I go, searching for tigers. I think I started at art.com or something. And literally within the first 2 or 3 searches, this tiger that's at my desk showed up. And I clicked on it. And I looked at the name The name of this print is called The Goddess. I mean, done, on the spot, bam, go to cart. You see, if you know me and you've listened to the show a long time, you know that I've raised my daughters with these words. Listen to your goddess voice, and you cannot go wrong. Your goddess knows only how to guide you to what's the very best for you. And I've always told them, you must learn to hear her voice, and you must learn to trust her voice. And so, yes, ma'am, this tiger is called the Goddess. And yes, she is everything I strive to be. She makes me smile every damn day. And this gorgeous, fierce tiger in this picture is called Goddess. Yes, she is mine. And so I have to say, it brings me great joy. And it literally changes a mood in me. Exactly what Patricia is talking about. What moves you? What inspires you? What makes you you, right? And so I have to say, too, it's fun because I recently did a Zoom for Monogram, I would say about a month or two ago. And somebody, maybe you're listening, I don't know, but somebody took a screenshot of me on the Zoom with my goddess in the background. And she said something on the caption in her stories like, man, her spirit animal is a tiger. Like, this is awesome. And yes, my spirit animal is a tiger. So if you need some good juju, like our friend Blanche Garcia calls it, good juju, and like Patricia explains it, tap into your true goddess voice. What art, what image, what object will speak as loudly and as lovingly and inspiringly to you as my goddess tiger does to me? With your symbol of strength and confidence behind you, and your symbol of future, your desires, your manifestations in front of you, whether it's a vision board like mine or Patricia's client, that awesome plane driving her to propel forward, right? Create a space that inspires you, that supports you, your life, your goals, your dreams, okay? The truth is, I know it. If you see it enough times, if you say it enough times, if you truly feel the belief of it, you can actualize whatever you intend, okay? And we have to remember not to forget about getting rid of the negative influences in our lives too, right? What around us is no longer serving us? What is subconsciously irking us every time we walk into a room? All right. Do you have a corner in your studio that's just a mess? Is it bringing you down? Get rid of it. Clean it up. Remove the negative and remove it and replace it with something that provides a positive emotion, something that will have that positive effect on your life, okay? And I love that Patricia isn't like throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? She says that we don't have to run out and buy all new things or a new house. She said everything is fixable, all right? So if we have a structure that must stay put, we can tweak the things around us to allow the bad vibes to fall away and the positive energy to flow through us and our space, right? I'm all about doing whatever we can to maximize the work we're already doing to hit our goals, right? We're trying to realize our dreams here. We're trying to live a life with no regrets, okay? So for me, yes, the actual work of my labors, my intellect, my body. But let's have some good juju around me. like I said, it fires me up. Sometimes I literally go upstairs and I just stare at her. And I just stare at her and I'm just like, man, you are it. And I get such strength from that. So find something like that for you. If you already have something or you find something after being inspired by Patricia's information today, put a picture of it in my Facebook group, LuAnn, Nigara, and Friends. Okay. That would be so fun to see the things that each of you have created in your personal space that jazz you up, that make you understand and know that you have everything in you to create the life of your dreams. I've told you before, one of my mantras, I learned it from Tony Robbins. All I have is within me now. All I have is within me now. All you need is within you now. Okay? All you need is within you now. Okay? So Put it in the Facebook group or on the IG post for this show. All right. I would love, love to see the things that inspire you, whether you have them in your office or your home or whatever, the things that make you reach higher. Okay. Big thanks to both Revel Woods and My Doma Studio for sponsoring the show and for sponsoring our upcoming High Point activities. Revel Woods will be sponsoring our Thursday night get together. That's right. We're having a LuAnn, and Friends get together on October 14th, 2021 in High Point. This is a free event and is open to you as long as you RSVP before we hit our max number. Now, unlike Power Talk Friday, which is going to be limited to under 20 designers, this is probably going to be more like 50, 60 so designers. Okay. But there is a limit. That's the way the world works, right? So I'm so grateful to both Revel Woods and My Doma Studio for sponsoring these events, the Thursday night event and the Friday Power Talk Friday tour. So on that Thursday night event, of course, all of my Power Talk Friday experts that are going to be in town will be there. Many of my Lu University instructors will be there. Some of the co-authors from my Power Talk Friday expert books and you. Okay. Go to the show notes for this episode to RSVP for this free event on Eventbrite, or go to the link tree in Instagram to find that Eventbrite link also. Okay. And I just want to say, again, thank you to these outstanding partners. Both Sarah Daniele and John Dupre will be with us for the celebration dinner of the Power Talk Friday tour after a very intense day of working, brainstorming, learning, and creating between the workshop, the sessions, the roundtable coaching sessions, all the things in between. If you've never been to a Power Talk Friday day or a LuAnn Live, I should say if you've ever been to a Power Talk Friday day or a LuAnn Live, then you know me. Be ready to go hard or don't come. For real. This is all day, full on, no fluff, all action. So good, though. So good. Please go now and see how each of these companies, My Doma Studio, .com/a well-designed business and revelwoods.com can help you be more efficient in your business, more profitable, be a better business owner. They help me bring this show and these events to you. All righty. Thank you so much for spending your time today. I really look forward. I hope that you will go out of your way to share some of your pictures, because that would be so much fun to see. All righty. Thank you. Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.